Hey squad, welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about my experience with reselling this month and what I have learned so far. So I recently put up a video about my top tips for reselling. I think there were 7 of them. If you missed that video, I'll actually just link it at the very end, and when you finish watching this video, you can hop over and watch that one. But I said in that video that I had some more in-depth personal thoughts that I wanted to put in a separate video. I felt like there was a separate place for that. So that's what this is going to be. I'm going to try my best to not be redundant and step on the toes of that video, but make this a separate video of its own. Also, the lighting keeps changing because my sunlight keeps going behind the clouds and then peeking out again. So if the lighting changes throughout the video, please be patient with me. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so I'm just gonna get into it. Reselling is really great, but it also has its challenges. So I wanna go through and sort of talk about those, and then I wanna talk about how I'm planning to proceed over the next few months. So the first thing that I learned is something that I touched briefly on the video of all of my helpful tips. And that is to really deal with the things as soon as they come in your house. I mentioned in that video that I've just accumulated piles. And that's from my listings that amount to maybe 20 items total. Plus I had a few furniture pieces going that required some spot treating, that required some staining, sanding, painting, all of those kinds of things. When you start to sell, you need to have a decent inventory. You know, I think when I first started out, my thought was just, I'll list something when I find it, and then maybe I won't list something again for 2 weeks or a month or whatever. I'll just list as I find things. And I think I mentioned in the other video, it really doesn't work that way. So you need to have that inventory, but you need to have a place to put it. I mentioned that the listings go much faster whenever you photograph your items and measure them as soon as you bring them in. The day that you bring something home, I would say, if it's possible, take your photos, take measurements, have a nice clean background for your photos, you know, have them staged well, measure things that you need to, and write down those measurements. And then find a central location. So right now I've moved everything into my son's closet, and it's gonna stay there until it sells or until I get rid of it otherwise. So that was the first thing that I learned, is that I have not been as prepared as I want to be, and that doing that work on the front end really makes the whole process go much smoother. The second thing that I learned is to not take on too many large projects at one time. Based on my season of life and my time limitations and all of those things, I think it's best if I keep my large projects, as in furniture pieces, to one item at a time until I get it finished and listed. And then I really don't want to have more than a few pieces listed at one time, just because I have limited space to store them. But things like painting and sanding, those are activities where I can't always be around the kids. You know, I don't want the kids around while I'm sanding a piece of furniture because I don't want them breathing that dust in. But I can't have the sander on during nap time, obviously, because it is very, very loud. So I currently have a chair that I'm working on that I've had for a long time that I'm going to sand down and restain and list. But it's just been sitting in the garage for weeks because I haven't found the appropriate pockets of time to sand and stain it. So that would be a tip, is just don't bite off more than you can chew. Those large furniture pieces are nice because a lot of times you can list them for a higher price than you would a small hard good or maybe a piece of clothing, something like that. But a lot of times they're going to take more work behind the scenes. So like you guys saw that nightstand that I redid, I was able to flip that for a decent profit, but it took sanding and staining and then mixing stain to get the right stain, and then doing wood putty on a part of it and sanding that down and staining it again, and then coating the whole thing with a polyurethane coat. It definitely took a time investment. So just keep that in mind as you're picking your things to resell. Would you rather do some more grunt work but then not have to list as many small items because you've got this big piece of furniture that you can list for more money? Or would you rather list a lot of small things, not make as much per item, but you don't have to do as much of that grunt work? I think it's important to ask yourself that question. I'm still kind of in the middle. I like the furniture work, but I just don't really have the best pockets of time for that in my season of life right now. I learned that it's important to already have an appropriate sized box, especially if it's something that's oddly shaped. Those pieces of artwork that I shipped, I had a little bit of an issue shipping those because I didn't have the appropriate sized box. So when I took it to the shipping place, they actually broke my box down for me into a smaller size, and they were able to do a really good job. But some of my profits came out of that because I had to pay them for that service. So I would say before you list something that is oddly shaped that you think you might have a difficult time finding a box for, find the box first and then list it. This eliminates the panic of someone buying something and then you going, oh, I need to ship it because if I don't ship it in time, I'm gonna get a negative review and I wanna make sure that I get 5 stars, but I don't have this box. If you've already got the box, if you've already got all of your shipping supplies there, all you have to do is when somebody buys something, just print the label, take it to the post office or have them pick it up, and then you can be done with it. I really learned the value of consistency. I mentioned that in the other video, but listing things on a regular basis, it really does make a huge difference. I found that this was hard to stick with. I think it would be easier if, number one, I did that batch photo session when I bring things in, go ahead and get them done. But I also think, number two, it could be really helpful if you have a set time of day that is your time to list new items. So, you know, maybe if you are a working mom, a part-time working mom, or if you're a stay-at-home mom and you know that your day is just going to be really hectic, maybe you get up early in the morning and you put a listing or 2 up, or maybe you do that at night right before you go to bed, or while your kids are napping, or, you know, if you just have a set time of day that is your listing time, and you've already got the photos on your phone, so it really should only take you, you know, 15 to 20 minutes to list a few items, and then they're done. Another thing that I'm also learning is that people like to get deals. That's no surprise, but if somebody likes your item on whatever platform you're on, there's a chance that they are waiting for you to mark that price down a little bit. So sometimes I will do this, sometimes I don't, but I've made quite a few offers to likers, and as a result, some of my items have sold. So those are kind of the main things that I've learned. I know that some of that is a little bit redundant from the video just because those were kind of the tips that I had for everybody else. And the tips that I had for everybody else are the things that I want to do a better job of going forward. Now, going forward, what is reselling going to look like for me? One of my friends, Kayla, I mentioned her in the last video, and her channel is called The E-Commerce Mom. She is a full-time reseller, and I was talking to her about some of my frustrations with my items not moving, and she was expressing to me that really to do a successful business, you have to have a lot of listings. And she was saying, you know, this business can really be whatever you want it to be. It can be a full-time business, a part-time business. It can be sort of a side hustle that just gets you a little bit of extra money for whatever it is you need it for. So me personally, I don't have a desire to be a full-time reseller. And I'll tell you why. That was never my intention with yard sales. That was never my intention with this channel. In the same breath, while I say that, I'm always open to where life is taking me, and I know that sometimes God has a purpose for me that is like a little bit different than what I was originally planning on. I know that if you're watching this and you're a believer, you know that's the case. And if you had asked me 10 years ago what my life would look like when I'm almost 30, it would not be doing what I'm doing now. But I think life can just kind of take us in different directions. I am not a minimalist and I am not a hoarder. I'm somewhere in the middle. You know, I try to keep things fairly tidy, but I don't like to just throw things out for the sake of throwing them out. I don't like to go on these binges where I purge the house and get rid of things that I might use later. I do try to keep things to a minimum and I don't try to have excess. But I've also been in that place where you go to look for something and then you remember that you threw it out whenever you were doing this mass decluttering, and now you're regretting it because maybe you have the perfect outfit for it, or you have a friend who could use it, or whatever the case may be. So that being said, you know, I think that the culture is pushing us a little more into this minimalist lifestyle, and that's just kind of what's been ingrained in our brains. It is very hard to be a full-time reseller and have that very clean minimalist mentality. Usually when I am thinking of a cleaning, decluttering type of project, there is an end goal. You know, you're working towards clearing this stuff out. You have to keep in mind that if you are a reseller, that's not your end goal, because if you clear everything out, then you have no inventory left which means you have no way to make more money. So that is why I say if you decide to resell in any capacity, you have to have somewhere to put those things. I have friends that I've met through YouTube and Instagram that they have a reselling room in their house where they keep their inventory. I have friends who have a storage unit because it's just too much to keep in their house. So different people do it different ways. Right now I have a part of a closet, and I really don't want to get that much more than that because I think it will stress me out. So that's just me personally. Also, I have some exciting opportunities and changes happening in terms of my work-life balance, and I definitely want to try to make sure that I keep that balance as much as possible. It is hard to do. I'm sure if you're watching this, you agree with that, you know that, you've experienced that. Finding that true balance is pretty impossible, but trying to get close to it is important. And I was just talking to a friend today, and we were talking about budgeting and money and all of these things, and I was saying everything can't be important, and that's so true with life. If I am wanting to venture off in a different direction, I can't do so much reselling. If I'm wanting to do a lot of reselling, then I have to cut back in another area. So right now my plan is to keep it as a true side hustle. I plan to be listing every week, maybe not every day, but multiple times a week. And I just am going to see what happens with that. It is not my main source of income. It is not where I'm putting all of my eggs right now. It's just something that I'm doing on the side to make a little spending money. Currently, I'm using it as a sinking fund for our vacation. And whenever our vacation is over, then I will pick a different purpose for those funds. That kind of helps me to keep going, and it gives me more motivation than just saying savings. If you are somebody who struggles with saving, that's one thing that I would recommend. This is not really a reseller point per se, but just more so a savings point. If you're someone who struggles with savings, if saving money is hard for you, or it just feels sort of daunting and maybe not so purposeful, maybe sinking funds would be something that you could try. And it's really just giving that money a name and a purpose. I'm going to be talking about that on my Instagram channel soon. So if you don't follow me there, that is at Yard Sale Squad. You can go and follow me there, and I plan on talking about that a little bit more. All right, guys, well, I hope that this helps. I hope that this inspires you if you plan on reselling in any capacity. I think that focusing on it for a month and really trying hard at it has helped me have some focus with how much or how little I want to do it for the remainder of the year. So as always, I will keep you guys updated on my finds, on my listings, on what sells and what doesn't, as well as just our normal everyday life. If there's something that you'd like to see a video on, please leave it in the comments down below. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Please make sure you like and comment and subscribe, and I will be talking to you soon.